The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every small sound echo through the house. The Harper home, usually warm and welcoming, felt different tonight. The porch light glowed softly, casting long shadows across the driveway. Inside, Evelyn Harper sat on the couch, staring at the muted television screen, but she wasn't really watching it. Her mind kept wandering back to the same thought over and over. Will she come tonight? The question had lingered for weeks, since Evelyn had gotten that phone call from a distant number. The voice on the other end, soft but serious, telling her that Lena was coming home. Evelyn's heart raced at the thought, a mixture of excitement and worry twisting inside her. Lena had been gone for nearly 3 years, off to college, then traveling for a summer internship, and later trying to figure out her life. Evelyn had spoken to her on the phone occasionally, but those conversations were never enough. She had missed the sound of her daughter's laughter. It's the way she used to run into the kitchen after school, or the way she would curl up on the couch with a book, her legs tucked under her. Tonight, all of that was about to change. Mark Harper, Evelyn's husband, sat across from her, leaning back in his armchair with his hands folded tightly on his lap. He had been trying to act calm, but his jaw was tense, his eyes sharp and watchful. He knew the visit would bring questions and maybe answers. But what he feared most was the truth Lena might carry with her, the truths she had lived through. Without them, when the faint sound of tires crunching on gravel reached their ears, the air in the room seemed to tighten. Evelyn rose, moving toward the door before Mark could say anything. She felt her stomach twist with nervous anticipation. The door creaked open slowly, and for a moment, the world outside seemed to pause. There she was, Lena, standing on the porch, taller now, carrying herself with a quiet confidence that had replaced the shy, playful girl they had known. Evelyn's hands trembled as she reached out, but Lena's eyes met hers, calm yet distant, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to speak aloud. The smile on Lena's face was faint, polite, but it didn't reach the depth of her eyes. It was a smile that had been practiced, the kind you offer when you want to hide what's really inside. "Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad," Lena said softly, her voice carrying the warmth of familiarity but tinged with something else, hesitation. Perhaps, or fatigue. Evelyn wanted to rush forward, to pull her daughter into her arms and never let go, but she stopped herself. She needed this moment, to be real, not rushed. She noticed the subtle changes, the way Lena's shoulders were straighter, the way her hands seemed to rest lightly against her jacket, guarding something. "Come in," Evelyn whispered, stepping aside. Lena nodded and entered, her eyes briefly scanning the living room as if measuring it against the memories she had left behind. The house smelled like home, faintly of baked bread and old furniture, familiar yet different now. Mark stood silently, offering a small nod. We wasn't sure what to say either. Words felt inadequate tonight. Lena set her bag down and removed her jacket, folding it neatly before placing it on the chair. Evelyn followed her movements, noticing the precision in every small action. It was subtle, but Evelyn realized that Lena had changed. The carefree girl who had once tossed her backpack on the floor without care was now deliberate in every gesture. "I didn't plan to stay long," Lena said, her voice soft, careful. "I just needed to come home for a while." There was a pause, a quiet weight that filled the room, heavy and unspoken. Evelyn sensed the hesitation, the invisible barrier Lena had placed between herself and them. She had come home, yes, but not just for comfort. There was something else, something she was carrying silently. "Of course, honey," Evelyn said gently, forcing a smile. "You're always welcome here." They moved to the kitchen to make tea. Evelyn tried to start a conversation, talking about small, ordinary things, the weather, the neighbors, trivial matters, but every word seemed to hang in the air, weighed down by the tension of what was unspoken. Lena listened, nodding politely, her eyes distant, her hands wrapped around the warm cup of tea. Mark finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. It's good to have you back, Lena. We've missed you. Lena's gaze shifted to him, and for the first time, the walls she had built seemed to falter. There was a flicker of emotion in her eyes, something raw, fragile, and unguarded. "I missed you too," she said quietly, almost as if testing the words before letting them out. The conversation drifted back and forth, small talk mixed with pauses that said more than words ever could. Evelyn noticed the way Lena's lips tightened slightly whenever she touched a sensitive subject. The way her eyes darted briefly to Mark when a memory surfaced. It was clear she was holding something inside, a secret that weighed heavily on. Her heart thought the hours passed quickly, yet the tension never eased. Every laugh was careful, every question measured. Lena's presence brought warmth, yes, but also a strange kind of uncertainty, a sense that life as they knew it was about to shift in ways they couldn't predict. Evelyn felt a pang of sadness, realizing that her daughter had grown in ways she hadn't been there to witness, had faced challenges and heartbreaks that they only glimpsed in fragments as the night deepened. Lena moved to the window, staring out into the darkness. Evelyn and Mark exchanged a glance, understanding without words that something had changed. Lena wasn't the same girl who had left. She had become someone else, shaped by experiences and choices, carrying a story they were only beginning to learn. Finally, Lena spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "There are things you don't know, things I've gone through. I wasn't ready before." Evelyn stepped closer, placing a hand on Lena's shoulder. "You don't have to be. Ready alone? You're home now. We'll face it together." Lena nodded, but the tension didn't leave her shoulders. She had come home seeking solace, yes, but also clarity, and perhaps even confrontation. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that comes before a storm. They all sensed the calm before the truth would be revealed. The clock ticked on, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the only sound in the background. Lena sat down again, wrapping her arms around herself as if protecting a fragile secret. Evelyn poured another cup of tea, sliding it toward her daughter. A silent gesture of love and patience. Mark finally moved, sitting beside Lena but keeping a careful distance. "Whatever it is, we'll face it," he said. His voice was steady, but his heart raced. He feared what Lena might say, feared that the past would rise and shake the fragile peace of their home. Lena's eyes welled up slightly, but she blinked quickly, trying to regain composure. "I don't know if I can say it all tonight," she admitted, "but I needed to be here first, needed to be home, even if just for a moment before I can explain everything." Evelyn felt a lump in her throat. Her daughter was hurting, and she wanted to take all the pain away. But she knew it wasn't possible. This was Lena's journey, and all they could do was wait, listen, and be ready. The three of them sat together in the living room, teacups warming their hands, silence settling around them like a blanket. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was expectant. Each heart beat with hope, fear, and love, all at once. They knew that tonight was only the beginning, that the coming days would test them, challenge them, and reveal truths they hadn't imagined. But in that moment, there was something beautiful, fragile and undeniable. Lena was home, and everything else, Spain, secrets, heartbreak, could wait for now. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly, stars twinkling faintly. Inside, the Harper house held its breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. Lena had come home, yes, but what she brought with her was not just her presence, it was a story, a truth, and a change that none of them could ignore. And as the porch light flickered softly, Evelyn realized something she had known all along. Life could never go back to the way it was before. Lena's return had already shifted the balance, altered the course, and opened a door that could never be closed again. She watched her daughter take a sip of tea, eyes fixed on the steaming liquid as if it held answers. And in that moment, Evelyn understood. Coming home was never just about the walls, the rooms, or the memories. It was about facing what had been left unsaid, about welcoming the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. Mark cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "Why don't we get some rest? We have time to talk tomorrow. Let's start slow." Lena nodded again, a small smile brushing her lips. She rose to go upstairs, but paused at the top of the stairs, turning back to look at them. The moment was fleeting, yet it carried weight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me come home." And as she disappeared into the shadows of her old room, Evelyn and Mark exchanged a look that said everything. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring. They didn't know the full story. But one thing was certain: life had changed tonight. Forever. The porch light continued to glow softly, a beacon of hope and of uncertainty, as the Harper family began the first night of a new chapter, one filled with truth, emotion, and the fragile unspoken bonds that only family can hold. The morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, painting the room in soft gold. Lena sat alone at the table, her fingers wrapped around a warm cup of coffee, watching the steam curl into the air. It was quiet, but not peaceful, the kind of quiet that made your thoughts louder than usual. She felt like she was caught between yesterday and today, between who she used to be and who she had become. The house was familiar, yet it had changed too. Small details stood out: the way the curtains swayed in the morning breeze, the faint creak of the floorboards, the way her mother's favorite mug sat on the counter. Everything was the same, yet nothing felt the same. Evelyn moved into the kitchen, carrying another cup of coffee. Her steps were light, careful, not wanting to startle her daughter. She set the cup down and gave Lena a soft smile, one that was full of warmth, but also careful, as if testing the waters. "Morning," she said quietly. "I made it just the way you like it." Lena nodded, her lips pressed together. She wanted to respond, to say something meaningful, but the words got caught in her throat. The pain from yesterday, the memories. She had buried the longing she had tried to ignore. They all crowded in at once. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. Coming home, sitting at this table, feeling the safety of family. But reality was different. Reality was raw and complicated. Evelyn pulled up a chair and sat beside her. Close enough to reach out, but not too close to force anything. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," she said. I want you to know you're not alone." Lena's fingers tightened around her cup, the warmth seeping into her skin, grounding her. She looked at her mother, really looked at her, and saw something she hadn't noticed in years. Unspoken understanding, a quiet strength, that had held them together even when the world outside seemed to crumble. She wanted to tell her everything. She wanted to spill out the heartbreak, the regrets, the mistakes she had made. But the truth was heavy, and she wasn't sure if anyone could hold it with her. I went through something," Lena began, her voice low and hesitant. "Something that changed me, something I wasn't ready to talk about before. I thought I could handle it on my own, but..." She trailed off, staring into her coffee as if it could give her the courage she lacked. Evelyn reached out, her hand brushing lightly against Lena's. "You don't have to be alone anymore," she said gently. "We've missed you. We can handle it together." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Lena felt a lump in her throat, and for a moment she let herself breathe. She had been running for so long from heartbreak, from disappointment, from herself. Now, for the first time in months, maybe even years, she felt the possibility of landing somewhere safe. She took a deep breath and spoke, the words spilling out faster now, urgent and raw. "I loved someone. I really did. And I thought it would last. I thought it was different, but it wasn't. He left, not in a dramatic way, not with anger. He just stopped caring. She chose someone else. He chose comfort over honesty. Didn't see it coming." Evelyn listened quietly, her hand never leaving Lena's. She felt the familiar sting of pain for her daughter, a mixture of anger, sorrow, and helplessness. She wanted to take away every hurtful moment to shield Lena from the weight of disappointment. But she knew she couldn't. Life had a way of teaching lessons in the hardest ways. And sometimes the only thing a parent could do was offer love, patience, and a listening ear. Mark entered the kitchen quietly, leaning against the doorway. He hadn't meant to overhear, but he had. And now, standing there, he realized something he hadn't before his daughter had grown. And her heart had been tested in ways that he had no control over. He wanted to say something reassuring, but the right words eluded him. So he simply watched silently, giving Lena space, but remaining present. Lena's voice trembled slightly as she continued. I kept hoping he would come back, hoping it was just a misunderstanding, hoping I had misread everything. But the more I waited, the more I realized love doesn't always fight for you the way you fight for it yourself. And when it ends, it leaves this emptiness. I felt so lost, so alone. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she blinked rapidly, trying to stop them. Evelyn's grip tightened slightly, not in control, but in comfort. I know, she said softly. I know it hurts, and it's okay to feel that. You don't have to hide it from us. The moment hung between them, heavy, but not suffocating. Lena's vulnerability was a fragile bridge, connecting her to the people who had always loved her, even when distance and silence had separated them. Mark stepped closer now, resting a hand on the back of a chair near Lena. We've all faced pain, he said carefully. We've all made mistakes. What matters is that we're here now, together. Lena looked at him, her eyes searching. She saw his honesty, his struggle to find the right words, his desire to support her despite knowing he could never fix everything. And in that glance, she felt a mix of gratitude and sadness. Gratitude for the love that was still there, unbroken, and sadness for the moments she had spent carrying her heartbreak alone. The day moved forward, slow yet relentless. Lena wandered through the house, touching familiar objects, noticing details she had missed as a child, remembering memories she had forgotten. The old piano in the living room, the photographs on the wall, the worn-out armchair by the window, all of it felt both comforting and bittersweet. She realized how much she had missed, how much she had grown, and how much she had been holding inside. Evelyn followed her at a distance, not intruding, but ready if her daughter needed her. She watched Lena's expressions change with every step, the flicker of emotions passing across her face like shadows at sunset. She saw longing, regret, curiosity, and a quiet determination that hadn't existed before. It was the determination of someone who had faced life's disappointments and had survived. Do you want to sit down? Evelyn asked after a while, guiding Lena back to the kitchen table. I can make lunch, or we can just talk. Lena shook her head gently. I don't want lunch. I want to sit here with you. I need to process it all slowly. And so they sat, the three of them now together in the kitchen. A fragile triangle of love, understanding, and unspoken truths. The sunlight shifted, casting long patterns across the floor. Lena's gaze drifted to the window again, to the world outside that had kept moving while she had been struggling to find her footing. I didn't know where else to go, she admitted quietly. Home felt like the only place I could think of that might make sense again. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. She wanted to tell Lena that home had never stopped being home, that no matter what mistakes were made, no matter what heartbreak had been endured, the doors would always be open and hearts would always be ready. You're safe now, she whispered. You can stay as long as you need. Mark moved to stand beside them, placing a comforting hand on both their shoulders. A silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. The tension in the air softened slightly. Though the shadows of yesterday's pain lingered, Lena's eyes flickered to her father. She felt a strange combination of affection, uncertainty, and unspoken questions. Her heartbreak had opened her heart to emotions she hadn't anticipated, the kind that made her feel both vulnerable and alive. I don't know how to explain everything yet, she admitted. There's a lot I've gone through, things I've seen, things I've felt, I'm still trying to understand it all myself. Evelyn nodded, understanding completely. You don't have to explain everything at once. One step at a time is enough. Just being here, just being with us, is enough for now. The afternoon faded into evening, the golden light shifting to soft shadows. Lena moved to the living room, curling up on the old sofa, and let herself rest. Evelyn and Mark exchanged a glance, silent acknowledgement passing between them. This was only the beginning, but it was a start. The past couldn't be undone, the heartbreak couldn't be erased, but healing could begin. Slowly, carefully, one moment at a time. Hours later, when Lena stepped outside into the cool evening air, she breathed deeply, letting the night wrap around her like a protective cloak. She felt fragile, yes, but also grounded in a way she hadn't in months. She realized that returning home wasn't just about physical space. It was about reconnecting with people who loved her unconditionally, people who could help her navigate the emotional storm inside her. Mark joined her outside, standing quietly by the railing. "You've grown so much," he said softly, "and yet you're still my daughter, still part of this family." Smiled faintly, a bittersweet curve of her lips. "I needed to see that," she admitted. "I needed to remember that I have somewhere to come back to." They watched the stars appear one by one, a quiet testament to time passing. 2 moments unfolding and to the promise of tomorrow. The night was still, but it no longer felt heavy. There was a sense of hope, fragile but present, that maybe things could begin to heal. Lena returned inside as darkness fully settled. She climbed the stairs slowly, pausing at the top to look back at her parents. For the first time in a long while, she felt a connection, a sense that despite the heartbreak and disappointment, love could endure, could heal, could be a foundation to stand upon once again. As she lay in her old room, staring at the ceiling, Lena thought about the days ahead. Conversations that would be difficult, emotions that would be raw, trut. The night had passed, but the Harper house did not feel the same. Morning light crept through the curtains, gentle and unassuming, yet it carried a weight of anticipation. Lena woke first, as she often did when emotions ran too deep for sleep to hold. She lay still for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the house. The familiar creaks and sighs, the faint rustle of leaves brushing against the windows. Everything was ordinary, yet she felt that everything had changed. Yesterday's conversations, her mother's comforting words, her father's silent support, they lingered in her mind, a mixture of warmth and uncertainty. She rose slowly, her bare feet touching the cool floor. The living room was empty, but the faint aroma of coffee still hung in the air. She walked over to the window, staring out at the world that had continued moving while she had been lost inside herself. There was comfort in this routine, in the familiarity, yet there was also a quiet tension. She knew that today, the truth she had been carrying for so long would finally begin to unfold. Evelyn entered the room quietly, holding a mug of coffee. She had been awake for hours, her thoughts as restless as Lena's. "Morning," she said softly, setting the mug down. "I thought you might like some tea before breakfast." Lena nodded, her eyes fixed on the outside. "Thanks, Mom." Her voice was low, almost reluctant. She took the mug, letting her fingers curl around it, the warmth a grounding presence. She felt the familiar ache in her chest, the ache of heartbreak, of secrets kept, of truths unspoken. But she also felt something else, something she hadn't felt in a long time: courage. "I need to tell you something," Lena began, her voice trembling slightly but firm. "Something about what I've been through, about the mistakes I made, and the people I trusted." She paused, searching for the right words. "I thought I could handle it all alone, but I can't anymore. I need you to know." Evelyn's hand brushed against Lena's. "We're here, honey. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Mark appeared in the doorway, silent but present, the weight of the moment clear in his eyes. He hadn't interrupted. Before, because he wanted Lena to choose the pace, to speak when she was ready. Now, standing there, he felt a strange mix of apprehension and hope. He had sensed the tension, the hidden truths Lena carried. And he knew that today would bring answers and answers, would shape their family in ways they hadn't yet imagined. Lena inhaled deeply, the words spilling out faster now, urgent and raw. "I fell in love with someone," she admitted. "I trusted him completely. I thought we would have a future together, that he would stay no matter what. But he didn't. He left quietly, without explanation, without confrontation. I felt like everything I believed in was taken from me, and I was left empty, alone." The room was silent. Evelyn's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Mark's jaw tightened. He could feel the weight of Lena's words pressing down on the walls, on the floor, on every corner of the house. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was the kind of silence that demanded attention, that forced reflection. "I tried to pretend it didn't matter," Lena continued, her voice stronger now, tinged with emotion. "I tried to focus on work, on school, on travel, but it followed me everywhere. Every choice I made, every person I met, I couldn't escape the emptiness he left behind. I thought I was over it, but I wasn't. I was just hiding from it." Evelyn's grip on her daughter's hand tightened. "Pain has a way of following us, even when we think it's gone," she said gently. "But facing it is the first step to healing. You don't have to do it alone anymore." Mark stepped closer, placing a hand on Lena's shoulder. "We can help you carry it," he said softly. "Even the parts that hurt the most, the parts that feel impossible to forgive or forget. You're not alone in this family. Never again." Lena's eyes flickered between her parents, taking in their expressions, their gestures, their presence. She realized then that her return home wasn't just about seeking comfort, it was about finding clarity, about understanding that heartbreak, mistakes, and choices were all part of life. And that real love could survive even the heaviest storms. The conversation shifted slowly, from heartbreak to reflection. Lena spoke of the moments she had spent alone, the nights she had cried herself to sleep, the self-doubt that had plagued her. She spoke of the person she had been, the illusions she had held on to, and the lessons she had learned too late. Her voice, once hesitant and trembling, grew steadier as the words poured out. It was cathartic, almost painful, but necessary. Evelyn listened, offering comfort and reassurance, never interrupting, never judging. She felt her daughter's pain deeply, yet she also felt pride. Lena had faced the world on her own, had endured heartbreak, and had come back stronger. She was no longer a child, no longer someone who needed protection at every step. She was someone who had survived, who had grown, who had learned to navigate the complexities of love and trust. Mark joined in, not to correct or lecture, but to share perspective. He spoke of mistakes he had made, of moments he had faltered, of lessons he had learned over years. His voice was steady, reflective, and honest. Lena listened, realizing that even her parents, the people she had always seen as anchors, had struggles of their own. It was a revelation, a reminder that no one's life was without pain, that love and family were about support, forgiveness, and resilience. The afternoon passed, the sunlight shifting to a softer glow. Lena moved to the living room, curling up on the sofa, feeling the warmth of her family around her. She didn't speak for a while, letting the emotions settle, letting herself feel the depth of connection she had missed. Evelyn sat nearby, reading quietly, while Mark busied himself with small tasks around the house. The presence of her parents, silent but attentive, was more comforting than words could ever be. Later, Lena decided to confront another truth, one she had avoided for years. She turned to her father, her voice calm but deliberate. "Dad, there's something I need to understand about our family, about the choices that were made before I was old enough to know, about the secrets that were never spoken." Mark's heart tightened. He had hoped this moment wouldn't come so soon, but he knew it had to. "It's time," he admitted softly. "It's time you know the truth." He led Lena and Evelyn to the dining room where the light was softer, more intimate. The three of them sat together, the tension palpable but not overwhelming. Mark took a deep breath and began to speak, carefully choosing each word. Years ago, he said, I made a mistake. A choice I regretted almost immediately. It was not about love, but about loneliness, confusion, and human error. I hurt someone I cared about, and I carried the guilt silently for years. Lena's eyes widened, but she didn't interrupt. She wanted to hear it all, even if the words were difficult to bear. Evelyn reached out and squeezed her hand, offering silent support. Mark continued, explaining the circumstances, the decisions, the regrets, and the lessons learned. He spoke of the burden of silence, the weight of unspoken truths, and the realization that honesty was the only way forward. Lena listened, her heart racing, her mind absorbing every detail. The story was complex, filled with emotion, but it was real, and that mattered more than anything else. When he finished, the room was quiet again. The weight of the past hung in the air, heavy but no longer secret. Lena felt a mix of emotions, shock, confusion, understanding, and, strangely, relief. The truth had been revealed, and while it didn't erase the past, it allowed for a beginning. Evelyn spoke then, her voice gentle but firm. Family isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, forgiveness, and being there for each other no matter what. We can't change what happened, but we can choose how we move forward. Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face now. She felt a strange liberation, a sense of clarity that had been missing for years. The heartbreak, the mistakes, the secrets, they all had weight. But now that weight was shared, carried together. The three of them sat together in silence for a long while, each lost in thought, each feeling the fragile bonds of family stretch and strengthen simultaneously. Lena realized that returning home wasn't just about confronting her own Pennette, was about understanding her parents, their humanity, and the love that had endured despite everything. As the evening progressed, they moved to the living room. Lena curled up on the sofa again, her parents sitting nearby, forming a protective circle of presence and care. They didn't speak much after that, letting the quiet speak for them. There was understanding in the silence, acceptance, and a newfound connection that didn't rely on words. Night fell fully, the stars blinking in the sky like distant reminders of time passing and life continuing. Lena gazed out the window, feeling a mix of sorrow and hope. She knew there would be challenges ahead, difficult conversations, moments of doubt, and emotional storms. But she also knew she wasn't alone anymore. She had her family, the people who loved her unconditionally, the people who could help her navigate the complexities of her heart. Before going to bed, Lena paused at the top of the stairs, looking back at her parents. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of emotion. "For being here, for listening, for staying." Evelyn and Mark exchanged a glance, their hearts full. "Always," Evelyn said softly. "Always, Lena, no matter what." Mark nodded, a small, reassuring smile on his face. "We'll face everything together," he said. "Everything."